What you're about to watch is part 1 of this theory, so check the comment section or the description to see the remaining parts of this theory. If it's not there, then stay tuned for more to come. Today's speculation is about Seraphims and why they're able to use devil fruit powers. Now, we've only seen one use the devil fruit thus far, the S shark, but I speculate that they're all going to be able to use devil fruit powers. I mean, it's only natural. So the question is, how come he's using the swim fruit? Did he get it from Senior Pink, aka Senior Pink is dead? I highly doubt that. Did Vegapunk give an artificial devil fruit to the pacifista? That is possible. However, I think it's something even more complicated than that. Before we get into what I believe this new method of replicating devil fruit powers is, I want to address why Vegapunk wouldn't just use artificial devil fruits. Obviously, if he's already able to make devil fruits, he might as well just do the method he's already familiar with. However, my first reason why he won't use it is because thus far, we've only seen zone devil fruits be artificially created. So this new method could be made to go beyond the limitation of just a zone devil fruit. My second reason is that this new method may actually allow the pacifistas to have more than one devil fruit power. Note that I haven't said more than one devil fruit, because the premise of what I think this new method is actually to acquire the power of a devil fruit without actually having to eat the fruit. The rest of this video will be me explaining how I think that could even be possible, and how Vegapunk could even discover such a thing. In order to get into that, we must first talk about Lunarians, who obviously these new pacifistas are based off of. So what do we know about Lunarians? Well, they're super tough, they were referred to as gods, and live in the most extreme environment. Well, I actually have a lot to work with because I already have a theory on Lunarians called the Red Sea theory. I highly recommend you watch it. It's definitely one of my best theory videos. And I have a part 3 that I know a lot of you are waiting for me to come out with, which I'm still working out the kinks. In fact, I'll mention a couple things that are going to be in part 3 in this quick video. I'm going to play a quick clip from part 2, but first let me summarize so that you can actually understand what's going on. But even after the clip, I'll explain more after, so just bear with me. Basically, just like there's a heaven in the sky, with the sky islands and their angelic people, I believe there's a place that is hell under the Earth's crust of One Piece, in the mantle known as the Red Sea. Inhabitants of the Red Sea, or more specifically the humanoids of the Red Sea, are demons and, at one point, Lunarians. The demons originate from there. The Lunarians were there under circumstances. There's also other creatures, unbelievably tough creatures such as dinosaurs, the Red Sea Kings, who I speculate to be dragons, and I even believe it contains the roots of the Atom Tree. I mean, this theory is loaded, believe me, you have to see it to get it. What I need from that theory for today's speculation is what I believe the origin and root of the Lunarians' powers. So to briefly summarize that, the Lunarians are not much different from the angels we saw in Skypiea, in the sense that they were aware of the supernatural power known as mantra, which is also known as Haki, but only the more spiritual component of it, which was observation Haki. Because if you notice, in Skypiea, no one really used armament Haki. So these people who had spiritual wisdom and knowledge somehow find their way into the Red Sea. I'm going to explain that in part 3. Now, in the Red Sea, you need armament Haki because it's the toughest place to live. So, what they ended up doing is those that actually survived, I would assume many of them probably died, but the ones that actually survived learn how to use that spiritual wisdom and power to overcompensate for what they lacked physically by what I dubbed retro Haki. So basically how retro Haki works is that it is stored, compiled, energy aura Haki that could be used in the present. I believe it was the Lunarians who learned how to use power from the past in the present, which led to things like black blades, the poneglyphs, and even devil fruits. In fact, Lunarians are much like Nephilim, and there's a lot of debate about what is really a Nephilim. Basically, I'm going to focus on the etymology of Nephilim. Essentially, Nephilim are fallen angels, which coincides perfectly with what I think Lunarian are. They're people from the sky who fell down to hell, or the Red Sea. So what this did was force these people to basically excel at both spiritual and physical power. And the union of the two is what eventually birthed devil fruit powers. Now, I don't even think they were the first ones to do that. Remember I said Red Sea Kings, and I think that they're dragons. Well, I think at some point in One Piece's history, these Red Sea Kings found their way up to the surface through the Red Sea upstream, aka a volcanic eruption. But I say all of that to then relate it to Seraphims. So, that Seraphims are a specific type of angel that can also be translated as fiery flying serpent. And what does that remind you of? Well, dragons. This idea of dragons and angels almost being synonymous, I think, is very prevalent in Luffy's Gear 5th, is his eyebrows. It has the swirls in it. And a lot of people point to, well, look at the Sanji, look at Vinsmoke's, and we will talk about them. But his eyebrows are actually more like Momo's and Kaido's in their dragon form. In fact, the people of Wano accepted Kaido as their leader, as their guardian deity, like really easily. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm so sorry. Basically, if you notice, Kaido in his dragon form could master so many different elements, especially with his roar, his breath. But I promise you, this all makes sense. This is why I do Understanding Haki. This is why it takes so long for me to make videos, because there's so much information and I gotta put it together for you guys so properly. But hey, I just want to make a video, so please bear with me by rambling. If you follow along, I promise you there is an end road that does make sense. So, a dragon's breath is derivative of supreme breath, or supreme chi. Why do we care about supreme chi? Well, if you follow my channel, you know exactly where I'm going with this. Haki literally means supreme chi. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is that there's a link between Haki and devil fruits. Cheese. Play the clip, Elijah. In my chakra theory, I speculate that armament correlates to the first three of the 7 chakras: the root, sacral, and solar plexus, which are respectively earth, water, and fire. We've talked plenty about earth and fire, but what about water? The water element doesn't literally mean that the Haki master wields water, but rather their fluid aura. However, fishermen do use literal water in their techniques, and have you ever noticed how similar fisherman karate is to advanced armament Haki? Well, the fishermen live a vast amount of their time in and around water. Why do I bring this up? Well, if you look at the way King fights, he not only uses fire, but his fire can even become like magma. And just like how the fishermen have adapted to using advanced armament Haki, and therefore water, the same could be true for Lunarians and the power they gain from their environment. First off, if they did live in the Red Sea, which is surrounded by magma, then it makes perfect sense why King's own attacks use magma. Also, the 2 elements I propose the Lunarians mastered are the root and solar chakra, earth and fire. Just like how I said earlier that the sacral chakra doesn't use literal water, the same is true of the solar plexus. The flame on King's back isn't actual fire, but rather his aura vibrating at a frequency that imitates fire. As a result, he can do all the same things to that flame that he can do to his aura in its regular state. If you recall when we were talking about retro Haki, I said the Lunarians learn how to turn their spiritual energy into something that is physical and tangible. This would explain why retro Haki makes a black blade heavier. If a Lunarian can make their regular aura physical, then the same can be true for their fiery aura. This explains why King gets faster when the flame on his back goes out. King strengthened his flame by applying his ability to make it tangible. hardening the fire to the point at which it becomes rock hard. Apply intense heat to rock and you get magma. Now, King is also shown to stretch his body for some reason, but I'll go over that in part 3. Queen said that Lunarians are capable of living in any environment. I think most people assume this means being able to live on the moon, but we've seen Enel was just fine on the moon, and so were those space pirates. I'd say being in a place that is comparable to hell is a more impressive feat. Okay, the purpose of me showing that clips was mainly for 2 things. One, to show that I believe Haki is elemental. There's various forms of Haki, which we already know. There's observation, armament, and conquerors. But I think you can break them down even more so to their elemental properties. So for example, hardening is a level of armament Haki that is correlates to earth. Then I believe there's a second level that correlates to water and a third level that correlates to fire. Then observation has their elements. There's conquerors Haki that have their elements. The next thing I want to point out is that Lunarians excel at mixing together these elemental properties. That whole mixing of different frequencies or different elements is what leads to devil fruit powers. At least that's what I believe. Quickly, I just want to mention, earlier I said that this would be a quick video or quick theory. What makes it quick is not the length of the video. What makes it quick is how fast I can produce this video. I don't have a lot of time to make videos because I'm working on what's called understanding Haki. See, when I usually make videos, even if it's 10 minutes, it could take me weeks to make. So I don't have time to make week-long videos while also working on this huge project. Which segues into the next topic, understanding Haki. I don't believe Lunarians simply inherently have devil fruit powers like the Seraphims seem to do. They actually have to learn how to develop these devil fruit powers, but they simply excel at it better than any other race. So, for example, let's say you took the best basketball player in the world that was male and female, had them procreate, put that offspring onto an island isolated for the first 18 years of its life, no information on the outside world. You couldn't expect to then give that 18-year-old a basketball and be the best NBA player in the world, or even be good at the sport if they don't know how to play it. You see, you gotta have the potential, but you also have to have the wisdom. That's why I say the spiritual wisdom and power together, along with the physical part of it for Lunarians. So, Seraphims have devil fruit powers, but how did they learn how to use them? Well, an easy answer is Vegapunk taught them how to develop devil fruit powers. And I don't think it's exactly that, as smart as Vegapunk is, because the concept of knowing how to use Haki isn't really intelligence based. If that was the case, people like Vegapunk, Caesar, Judge would be like the best Haki users in the world. It's less intelligence and more wisdom. And with wisdom is stuff like intuition, not exactly data. There's just a difference between wisdom and knowledge. And I talk a lot about that in understanding Haki. I'm not going to talk about it too much here. But basically what I'm trying to say is I believe Vegapunk understands that not everything boils down to what you know and hear, but what you feel in your spirit. And that may seem kind of ridiculous for a scientist to have that kind of thought process. But I believe if you were to just adhere to science or what is pragmatic or practical, you wouldn't get far in uncovering the truth of devil fruits. We already see people who only adhere to science, which is Judge and Caesar. And they have been accomplishing making supernatural powers, but it's nothing compared to Vegapunk. And I don't believe it's just because Vegapunk is smarter than them. He's also wiser than them. He understands that you don't have to know everything. You just have to know and also feel it within, which is why I believe the new pacifistas are biological rather than mechanical. Because if they're mechanical, well, they don't have autonomy. You have to tell them everything that they need to do. But if they're biological, all you have to do is set them on the right path and they will learn for themselves. Because think about it, why would you want a weapon that has autonomy? Ideally, you want to be able to control everything it does and not give it a free will. But these things the advantage of the new pacifists being biological is that it can create greater powers. So now the question is, how does Vegapunk set them on the right path? Well, we know that they have Lunarian DNA, which makes them better at learning Haki, but I think Vegapunk also ingrains it within their DNA that helps them to learn the spiritual knowledge. We already know about the lineage factor, right? But if you give Jinbei a Lunarian DNA, I don't think that automatically means he's going to develop a Devil Fruit power, because if he was, he probably would have done it anyway despite not being a Lunarian, because I believe it is still possible to develop Devil Fruit powers even if you're not a Lunarian. I look at someone like Zoro, who I think is on that road, that path to enlightenment. You notice how I use the word enlightenment? Well, in the word enlightenment is light, and Vegapunk is fascinated with the concept of light. And light, Devil Fruit have a strong connection. Shout out to Best Generation. Check out his video on Devil Fruits, which I highly agree with. I think he's right on the money. There is a connection between the way Devil Fruits work and the concept of light and electromagnetism. Electromagnetism is a color spectrum, or at least it contains a color spectrum, which what light is. So I believe there's a connection between Haki and Devil Fruits, and I believe there's a connection between light and Devil Fruits. So it's only natural that there's a connection between light and Haki. Well, light is colors. It's the color spectrum. Well, Haki is also referred to as shokus, shoku meaning color. But it's never explained why there are colors of Haki. Well, I believe it's because Haki is frequencies. Haki has a spectrum itself, which is each different element. So although Vegapunk is a scientist and he's not a monk or someone who's very spiritual, he does understand light, and by understanding light, that is how he understands Haki and Devil Fruit. And there's one thing I haven't mentioned up till now is the Void Sentry, and obviously that is a huge reason for why Vegapunk understands what he does now. And I can even apply that to what I'm talking about now. As much as I'm rambling, I promise you, this is all gonna have an endpoint. That's where we're gonna end this video for now. There's a lot more left that I recorded, but can't fit it all into one video. So either subscribe or check back with this channel to see why I propose evidence to show that there might actually be a Satan or devil in the world of One Piece. In fact, this one devil above all may actually be Joy Boy or Sun God Nika. I know that sounds crazy, but well, you'll just have to check out the next video to see why I think that. And if you know me, you know I don't just pull things out of thin air and run with it. I always show proof from within the manga and outside research.